At 5:30 a.m., a California Highway Patrol officer stumbled across a wrecked SUV at the bottom of a steep embankment near Castaic Lake. The back window shattered, the airbags deployed. His wallet, phone and laptop all still inside. But Bryce, gone. Most people assume Bryce Laspisa must have been kidnapped, attacked or killed after the crash. That something violent happened after he lost control of the vehicle. But here's the thing. There's no sign he was ever injured. No blood trail, no drag marks, no footprints leading away. Just a crash. And then nothing. And when investigators reviewed his movements in the 30 hours leading up to that moment, what they found was even stranger than his disappearance. In the next few minutes, you'll uncover how a promising art student with a seemingly normal life began to unravel over a single weekend, making bizarre choices, speaking in cryptic messages, and driving aimlessly across California, as if fleeing something no one else could see. You'll hear from the last people who spoke to him, the strange clues he left behind, and the chilling theory that suggests Bryce might not have been running from anything, but towards something he never reached. This is one of the most unsettling, unsolved disappearances in recent memory, and the deeper you go into Bryce's final hours, the more questions you'll have. And yet, by the end, you'll see why this case continues to haunt everyone who's heard it. Bryce Laspisa had everything going for him. He was 19, charismatic, and gifted, an art student at Sierra College in Northern California with a bright future ahead. His friends described him as outgoing and funny. His teachers praised his creativity. His parents, Mike and Karen Laspisa, who had recently moved from Illinois to Southern California, were proud of the man he was becoming. On the surface, Bryce was just another college kid, working his way through school, playing video games, and building a life. But something was starting to change. In the final days of August 2013, a subtle but disturbing shift began to ripple through Bryce's otherwise steady life. It started small. His girlfriend, Kim, noticed he was staying up for days without sleep. His friends began whispering about how he was giving away his prized possessions, including his Xbox and a pair of diamond earrings his mother had gifted him. When Kim asked him why, he just brushed it off with a casual shrug. Then came the unexpected breakup. Bryce ended things with Kim over the phone, telling her, "You'll be better off without me." There was no fight, no explanation, just finality. When she pressed for answers, he became vague, disconnected, like someone talking from far away. It wasn't just Kim who noticed. Bryce's roommate Sean later told police that Bryce had begun drinking heavily, even mixing alcohol with ADHD medication. This wasn't the Bryce he knew. It was like something had come over him, but no one could quite name what it was. Then, on the evening of August 27th, Bryce did something no one expected. Without telling anyone why, he packed up his car and started driving, heading south, hundreds of miles toward his parents' home. But he never made it, because what seemed like a young man simply heading home was actually the beginning of a mystery no one saw coming. Before we move on to what happened during that drive, take a moment to like this video and subscribe. These aren't just stories. They're real lives, real families forever changed. By staying with me, you're helping keep their voices alive. It was just after midnight on August 28, 2013, when Bryce's Toyota Highlander began its quiet journey down Interstate 5. No fanfare, no bags packed for a visit, no classes dropped. Just a sudden, unexplained decision to drive nearly 450 miles from his college apartment in Rocklin, California, to his parents' home in Laguna Niguel. And the strange part? He never told them he was coming. Karen Laspisa, Bryce's mother, only learned about the trip after a phone call from her son earlier that evening. Bryce's voice was calm but distant. "I have something to talk to you about," he told her. No details, no urgency, just that one cryptic sentence. And then the line went dead. To a mother's ears, that sentence should have been a red flag. But there was no panic in his voice, nothing that screamed danger. She assumed maybe he just wanted to talk in person. Maybe it was about school, or his breakup, or nothing serious at all. But the longer he stayed on the road, the more things began to unravel. Phone records show Bryce made several calls that night. None of them explained his sudden journey. At 1 a.m., he stopped to buy a drink in Buttonwillow, a small, almost forgotten town halfway between his college and home. It's a place you usually pass through, not stop in. Yet Bryce parked his SUV and just sat there for hours. Meanwhile, his parents stayed in touch, growing increasingly worried as his voice grew flatter and his answers became harder to read. They offered to come get him, he refused. And then, silence. Long, dragging silences between calls. Delayed responses. At one point he tells them he's getting gas, but a roadside service worker later reveals he never left the parking lot. Something was very wrong. And yet, somehow, everything still seemed almost normal. But this road trip wasn't taking Bryce home. It was taking him deeper into a mystery he'd never returned from. By early morning, Bryce Laspisa had been in Buttonwillow for 9 hours, and no one could understand why. This was a town with no real reason to stop. A cluster of gas stations, truck stops, and fast food joints surrounded by flat, open nothing. But Bryce wasn't sightseeing, he wasn't eating, he wasn't even moving. At 9 a.m., Karen and Michael Laspisa, now deeply concerned, called roadside assistance after Bryce told them he ran out of gas. The service dispatches a man named Christian, who arrives shortly and delivers 3 gallons. That's when things get eerie. Christian later says Bryce was polite, calm, too calm. He didn't look tired, scared, or under any kind of visible stress. He just stood by his SUV, alone in a wide, empty parking lot, like he had no place to be. When asked if he was okay, Bryce said he was fine. When asked where he was headed, he simply said, home. So Christian leaves. But 2 hours later, Bryce still hadn't moved. His parents call again, confused. He says he's on his way, but phone GPS data shows otherwise. The car hasn't budged an inch. Eventually, Christian agrees to drive back and check on him. Again. This time, he urges Bryce to call his parents. Bryce obliges. Karen answers. I'm fine, Mum, he says. I just need to relax for a bit. She asks if he's coming. He says yes, but even hours later, he's still in Buttonwillow. It was like Bryce was stuck, not just physically but mentally, as if he was at war with himself over taking the next step, and no one knew. The next time he did move, it would only make the mystery worse. After nearly an entire day of delays, strange pauses and vague phone calls, Bryce finally begins driving again. It's the evening of August 29th, and he's now headed south, toward his parents' home in Laguna Niguel. But as night falls, so does logic. Around 10 p.m., just outside of Castaic Lake, Bryce pulls off Interstate 5 and starts driving up a narrow, winding access road. It's remote, dark, and leads to nowhere in particular. Just a rugged ridge overlooking the lake. Surveillance footage from a nearby camera catches something baffling. At exactly 2:15 a.m., Bryce's car is seen heading up that access road. Then, 90 minutes later, it's seen again, going up the same road. Same direction, same camera. No sign he ever turned around. It's as if he was circling back, repeating something. But what? Just before dawn at 5:30 a.m., a disturbing call comes into the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. A CHP officer has spotted a car down a 25-foot embankment near the lake. It had gone off the road and crashed hard. Its back end slammed against the rocks, rear window shattered, airbags deployed. The car is Bryce's Toyota Highlander, but inside the wreckage, there's no one. The driver's seat is empty. The doors are closed. There's a small trace of blood on the headrest, but nothing severe. Bryce's wallet, phone, and laptop are all still in the car. But Bryce himself? Gone. No footprints, no trail, no sign that he ever left the crash on foot. Just silence. And for investigators, it was like staring at a ghost story frozen in time. Except it was real. and the boy at the center of it had simply vanished. When investigators arrived at the crash site near Castaic Lake, the scene looked like the aftermath of a minor accident. Jarring, but survivable. The vehicle had clearly tumbled off the embankment with force. The back window was shattered. Airbags had gone off, but there was no blood trail. No broken glass outside the car. No sign that someone had staggered away. And yet, Bryce was nowhere. A search team quickly spread out in every direction. Drones overhead, scent dogs on the ground. One of the dogs picked up Bryce's scent and tracked it to a nearby truck stop just a short walk from the crash site. For a moment, it felt like the mystery might break wide open. But then, just as quickly as it had been found, the scent vanished. Not faded, not lost. Vanished. There were no surveillance cameras at the truck stop, no witnesses who recalled seeing a disoriented young man walk in, and no indication he had caught a ride, walked off, or been abducted. It was as if he had stepped into that space and disappeared into thin air. Even stranger, Bryce's belongings were still in the vehicle. His wallet, his laptop, and even his cell phone, all untouched. If he had planned to run, why leave everything behind? And if he was hurt and confused, why not seek help? Especially with businesses nearby. Nothing made sense. It wasn't long before volunteers, helicopters, and cadaver dogs were sweeping the area for miles. But despite an exhaustive search, not a single piece of physical evidence surfaced. No clothing, no sightings, no activity on his accounts. Just silence. And for Bryce's parents, the crash, dramatic as it was, felt less like an ending, and more like the beginning of something darker, something they couldn't see or stop. When someone vanishes, the first instinct is to search for logic, some reason, some pattern that explains what happened. But in Bryce Laspisa's case, every theory only made the mystery more impossible. The first and most painful theory, that Bryce took his own life. In the days leading up to his disappearance, his erratic behavior, giving away personal items, ending relationships, and staying awake for days, did mirror warning signs. And the final phone call to his mother, "I have something important to talk to you about," sounded like someone preparing to unburden themselves before doing something irreversible. But if that's what happened, where is he? No body, no trace, not even a dropped item of clothing. In a remote area like Castaic Lake, that's incredibly rare. If he had jumped into the lake, cadaver dogs and divers would likely have found something. And search teams did everything short of draining the lake itself. Then came the second theory, that Bryce ran away, maybe to start over, escape pressure, or because of some internal breakdown. It was possible, but again, why crash the car? Why leave behind his ID, his laptop, his wallet, everything he would need to survive on the run? The idea that someone found him after the crash, a third theory, opened even darker possibilities. Was he picked up by a stranger? Was he harmed? Taken? Even if that were true, there's still no evidence. No credit card activity, no verified sightings, no phone records, nothing. Every avenue of investigation led nowhere. Every thread just unraveled. His parents, especially his mother Karen, held firm to one belief. Bryce intended to come home. She sensed it in his voice. Despite everything, she believed he never meant to disappear forever. But belief is one thing. Evidence, still zero. And the more theories emerged, the more Bryce's disappearance began to feel less like a case of human error, and more like something unspeakably strange. When you lay out the last 30 hours of Bryce Laspisa's life, minute by minute, it doesn't feel random. It feels like a slow, eerie countdown to something inevitable, like watching a storm on the horizon move closer, but no one knows how bad it will be until it hits. It starts the moment Bryce leaves his apartment in Chico. That choice alone is strange. He tells his roommate he's going to clear his head, maybe visit home, but doesn't pack for a trip. He just drives. From there, the timeline unfolds like a puzzle. Surveillance cameras and phone pings show he was on the road for hours, but not covering much distance. He stops frequently, sits idle. One gas station receipt time-stamped, one phone call placed, one sighting confirmed, but no one can make sense of the pattern. At 11 a.m., he's in Buttonwillow. 9 hours later, he's still in Buttonwillow. Why? And then, the strangest twist. He calls roadside assistance twice. Not because he needs help, but just to get someone to come check on him. The same man drives out to see him both times. The second time, Bryce thanks him, says he's fine, and then doesn't leave for hours. The man even calls Bryce's mother, telling her, "Your son seems okay, just tired." But we now know something inside Bryce was unraveling, slowly and silently. At 2 a.m., his car is seen on that final road, twice. Once going up, then down, then up again. Why repeat the path? And then, silence. By sunrise, Bryce's car is found smashed at the bottom of an embankment. But Bryce, gone. Looking back, each stop, each pause feels loaded with meaning. Like Bryce was buying time, or fighting something within himself, or waiting for something, or someone. And the worst part, no one watching this real-time countdown had any idea the timer was about to hit 0. Most missing person cases end with something. Evidence, a confession, a recovered body. Something you can point to and say, that's what happened. But with Bryce Laspisa, there's nothing. Just a wrecked car, a scent trail that fades into dust, and 1,000 unanswered questions that echo louder with time. When investigators arrived at the crash site, they expected to find a body. The back window was broken from the inside. His wallet and phone were still in the car. The keys were there. Blood was found on the headrest, but just enough to suggest a minor injury, nothing fatal. They brought in search dogs. One picked up Bryce's scent leading away from the crash, toward a nearby truck stop. Then, nothing. No camera footage, no more scent. It's like he stepped off the map. No confirmed sightings, no digital footprints, no activity on his bank accounts, phone, or social media. He was 19 years old in the most surveilled society in human history. And he vanished as if he'd never existed. And because there's no body, no sign of a struggle, no notes left behind, it's not even clear what kind of case this is. Accident? Foul play? Mental health crisis? Runaway? Every possibility feels half right and half wrong. Some people believe he walked away from the crash and started a new life. Others think he was picked up by someone who didn't have good intentions. And there's a darker theory, that whatever was unraveling in his mind finally reached a breaking point. But here's the part that sticks with people. Bryce never said goodbye. Not to his parents, not to his friends, not to anyone. It's not just that he vanished. It's that he vanished from the world without a single trace, and without a single word. In every story like this, the people left behind carry the heaviest burden. For Bryce Laspisa's mother, the disappearance is not just a case file. It's an endless question hanging over her life. She keeps her phone by her side, night and day, convinced that one day Bryce will call, that somehow, after all this time, he'll say he's okay and come back home. Her hope doesn't fade, even as days turn into weeks, months, and years. She talks about Bryce like he's still here, recounting memories and telling anyone who will listen about the signs she missed, or maybe didn't want to see. The broken relationship, the late-night calls, the strange behavior. Every detail is a thread she's desperately trying to pull, hoping it'll unravel the mystery. What makes her story haunting isn't just the loss. It's the silence. No answers, no closure. Just an unbearable waiting room with no end. And it's that silence that torments her most. Because how do you grieve someone who might still be alive? How do you hold on to hope when every lead grows colder and the world moves on? Her story is a raw reminder that missing persons don't just disappear. They leave an ache, a gap in reality that never quite heals. Bryce Laspisa's disappearance isn't just a story of a missing person. It's a mirror held up to all of us. The signs were there, the strange calls, the sudden trips, the strange, silent unraveling happening right in front of friends and family. But somehow, they slipped through unnoticed, like whispers lost in a storm. We often think missing persons vanish without warning, but in Bryce's case, it felt more like a slow fade, an alarm bell muffled by uncertainty and disbelief. It's a haunting reminder of how easily someone can disappear, not just from sight, but from understanding. No body, no clear answers, just a crashed car, a vanished young man, and a trail of questions that lead nowhere. The mystery doesn't close, it widens, leaving a space filled with more questions than answers. So what really happened to Bryce Laspisa on that cold night? Did he walk into the darkness on purpose? Was something darker at play? Or was he simply lost in a world no one around him could see? We may never know. But the real tragedy is how often we ignore the quiet signs. How many stories like Bryce's slip through the cracks, unanswered, unfinished. And as we close this chapter, the question lingers. How many people vanish silently, right before our eyes? And what will it take for us to finally listen? After all the strange choices, the unanswered calls, and the miles traveled into silence, Bryce Laspisa's story reminds us how fragile the line is between who we seem to be and who we become when no one is watching. We started this journey with a young man heading home, but what we uncovered was something much darker. A disappearance that challenges everything we think we know about hope, fear, and the quiet battles hidden beneath the surface. Remember when I said Bryce's last words to his mother hinted at something important? That promise, that moment of connection, now echoes louder than ever, because what he was running toward, or away from, remains a question without an answer. Maybe that's the hardest part, not knowing if he was lost, hiding, or just gone. And maybe, sometimes, the scariest stories aren't about the things we find, but the things we never do. So tonight, if you think you see someone struggling or hear a silent cry for help, remember Bryce Laspisa, because sometimes the signs are there, but the story doesn't end how we expect. If this story stayed with you, take a moment to subscribe, share, and remember, because every missing piece deserves to be seen. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay compassionate, and never stop seeking the truth. I'm Derek, and I'll be back soon with another investigation.